Hi, everybody. It's Warren from Core Practice. Welcome to your lab tracking module training video. I'm going to make a quick assumption first, or show you some quick things before I get into the actual demo. But there are two parts that I'll be covering for today. One is showing you how to submit a lab case. And then the second part is managing the lab case in the central area. So there's only two parts to it. But the first part is, before I get onto those two, is just to actually setting up the lab tracking modules. So for some people, you may need to turn it on, especially if you don't have the right permission settings. So that's the first thing that you want to do first before you continue on. So first of all, we'll go into settings, and then we'll go into groups here. And then the first thing you want to do is just check to make sure that all the relevant groups in here that need to use the lab module have the right access to it. So I'm just going to go into my administrator permission settings in here. And then what I'll do is I'll scroll down all the way to the bottom. And now you can see here there's lab permissions. Okay. So in here, you just want to give people the right sort of access to change certain things. So say, for example, should they be able to see it? Yes. Should they be able to create it? Should they be able to edit any of the lab orders once you've created a lab order? And of course, deleting it as well. Now there's some admin permissions in here. It's basically, this will allow you to edit any of the financial information that might be tied to a lab order, just to keep the system quite transparent. So, in this circumstance, maybe you would probably give this sort of access to administrators only, and not to anybody else. Otherwise, you might give them the ability to, change things after they've already been created or completed or even edited, right? So just make sure that you've got the right amount of access in here for your team, and then we can get started. So I'll go to my appointment book in here, and let's just say we're working off this particular patient here, Thor. Okay, so what we're going to do is, I'm just going to assume that you obviously know how to book in all these patients and, walking them through and all that kind of stuff. That's not really what this video is. It's just to show you how to do the lab order, and then we'll show you how to manage it. So first of all, we're going to go into the patient's file, and then we go to treatment. And then this is the first place where we're going to create a lab order. Okay, so you can see there's currently nothing in here at the moment. All right, so what we'll do is we'll do the usual steps in here to adding in our item code. So as an example, I'm just going to type in crown. Let's do a non-metallic in here. Let's ignore. I'll just say I'm going to do it on the 18. And then you'll see in here there will be a crown for $2,000 in here. Okay, so it's currently not invoiced. So obviously we haven't charged this out to the patient yet. But first of all, after we create the invoice to say that it's an outstanding invoice, we can also put our lab orders in as well. So depending on your kind of workflow, you can choose whatever you wanted to do it from. There is also, before I move on from this area, you can see I can create a lab order from using the cog here. The second part is when you go into plan or in charting, there is also a way for you to create a lab order from here as well. But I would recommend, depending on the workflow of the practice, if in case, say, for example, you typically like to do outstanding invoices first and charge the patient the whole thing up front or whatever it is, and having that outstanding invoice and then creating the lab order, you can do it this way. Or if you prefer to tie it to a plan and, just say to the patient, oh, I'm only going to charge you the next time when you come in or something like that. So that's the first thing you just want to confirm with the team first and just make sure you've got the right flow. So there's two ways. You've got the charting and the plan area to create a lab order from, or I think is the best way is to create an invoice or to create the item in here in the treatment tab and then creating the lab order from here. Okay, so let's just say we create the lab order from here. And what's going to happen is, because we also tie this back to the appointment book, and I will show you how we will visually show you this. So say, for example, I've got a planned appointment coming up next week for Thor. So you can see the planned appointment coming up on the 11th of March, which is next week. Okay. And when I tag it into that, I'll tie it to that appointment, what's going to happen is there's going to be a visual representation of how where this particular lab case is. And there's the two. One is, have we sent out a lab order, or is there a lab order that's attached to this particular appointment? And then the second one is whether or not we actually have received it already. Okay, so just make sure you've got a planned appointment coming up first, and then you can add this in. Alrighty, so now in here, you can create what sort of lab service it'll be. So just choose the one that makes sense to you, and you can update all of these, of course. And all the labs in here as well, these are all updated. These are part of the contact section, so just add your labs in there as an example. You also have a due date on here. The due date is just based on you, right? Whatever you think is most comfortable. And that's what's going to help you to keep track of all of these lab orders. So very important. Choose one that's suitable for you. So I guess your usual turnaround time for these cases. You can also put shades in here. You can also write up any instructions. You can use any templates, and you can also upload any lab sheets as well as an example. Okay, I'm just going to put something random in here just so we can see what it looks like. A lovely wallpaper. So you can write some instructions in here. You can also utilize any templates that you might have. I'm just going to pick a random one in here so you can kind of guess what it looks like. Okay, so kind of something like that. Obviously, it doesn't make sense here, but you can choose update those as much as you like. Then we choose the item that we're going to send off to the lab on what they are going to be working on for us. So let's just say, for example, we're going to choose a zirconia crown. You can customize all of these items as well. Once again. And then what we'll do is we'll put a unit price in here. And this unit price is the price that the lab is going to charge us for this particular lab case. And then if you need to add any other additional items or lines, just add new line item here and just add it in as yourself. Now that we've created this, we can create the order case now. And then what you'll be able to see is there should be a visual cue on here to let you know that a lab order was created for this particular item. Okay, so what's going to happen is when I come back to my appointment book, nothing's obviously going to happen for this appointment because it wasn't tied to this one. But now when I go to the next week's one, what should have happened is, and there you go, you can see lab work is needed on this particular lab, on this particular appointment. Okay, so then obviously we want to make sure that when we come up to next week, if there wasn't another icon in here to let you know that the lab case has arrived, then we know there's something wrong and we need to reach out to the lab. Now, the second part of it is managing the lab order. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into location here and then go to lab orders. And then once you're in lab orders, just make sure that you're in the right location because it's done by a location at the moment. And then once I've found my location and I've chosen the provider or all providers, I can run the report. Okay, so what you can see on the screen here is we can do it based on lab order like stages. You can filter on here. You can also filter by date if you need to. You can also include anybody that's already got completed orders as well if you want to look at any historical ones. You can choose to see from a particular lab as well as filter based on what sort of lab order services you're doing. And then as well if you just want to search it by patient on here as well. And then once you run the report, you'll see the report over here in the middle. And what you're going to see is there's a total of this amount of lab orders. You can see that it's currently 0 are completed and 1 currently not due. And you can see the not due one is the one that we currently have in here. And if it's overdue, that means it's past that due date that we set for that particular lab order. And if it's due soon, that means it's due within this within a couple of days. And then if it's not sent, that means we haven't sent the lab order to the dentist, also to the lab. And if it's waiting to reconcile, that means we haven't actually paid the lab, and we also haven't finished the job for the patient. Okay. Now, let's just have a look at our one that we made here. So you can see I've got one in here for Thor. Okay, lab order 10. So you can see the lab order here. You can also see which provider it was. You can also see the due date, which lab it's going for, what sort of service, the total fee, and then the fee that is meant to be paid by the patient. So if it's not paid, that means we know that we obviously have to make sure we get the patient to pay for the whole lot. Okay, you can also track what stage your labs are in over here. And you can also filter from here as well, by the way. You just click on it, show you the ones that are earliest in stage or the latest in stage. And they've also got some statuses in here to help you to see whether or not people have put in the right information. So as an example in here, you can see I've got a lab sheet that's already attached that I included as an image. Order is currently not issued. You will also see that if there's a planned appointment assigned, so if there's a planned appointment assigned, that means it's obviously very important that we get this on time. And then the lab order was obviously not published at this point. So let's take you through it and show you what the stages look like. So what am I going to do is, as I look at this, I just want to make sure I've got the right details. I'm going to send it to the right lab. And then you can see the stages in here to help you to keep track of at any given stage where these are. And just in case, if you need to add any other further instructions or anything like that, you can always go back into here and add them in. Or if you haven't already attached your lab sheet, you can always upload your documents from here. And then we just attach it as an email. Okay, so once you sorted all this out and you've got all the right information, I'm going to email this particular lab with these details. Don't worry, it says order sheet URL here. Basically, we put a link to the order sheet onto that email for you. And then the lab will be able to access it from there. Okay, so once that's sent out, we'll come back into here. And then now we can say, all right, lab order was sent. Cool. Easy days. So now you can see the lab order was sent, and I can quickly refresh this for you to show you that it's made the adjustment. Okay. And then now let's just say, for example, we received the lab order. And you can see it's turned up in there now. And if we've approved it and we're all good to go, then we can obviously mark that off as well from here if you want. So you've got the two areas where you can add them in. Okay. And now that we've approved it, if we come back to the appointment book, I just want to quickly show you that the appointment should have made the adjustment already for you. So we go back to next week. Cool. And now we can see the lab has arrived. Okay, now we come back and to finish it off, we'll go back into our lab orders. And after we finish managing this, basically what should happen from here is once we make the payment to the dentist and to the lab, from the patient's perspective, we're good to go. So as an example, if we mark this as paid, we can say, all right, we paid the $300. What was the expense over here? This meaning the expense to the either to the practice or to the dentist. So I record the payment now, and you can see here now there's less $300 expense. So if you're using our statement system, this will obviously be tied in with it as well, and then your statements will also turn up in there for you. Okay. If there are any questions about this, please let me know. You can also reach out to the support team for any further questions, and we'll be more than happy to help you out. Thank you so much for having a listen. We'll catch you guys later. Bye.